if I didn't have that experience of having these cells put into me. But I'll tell you, after they did, for months and months, like 3 or 4 months, I was waking up every hour, and sometimes every 45 minutes for like 10 seconds, and then going back to sleep. Waking up, going back to sleep. It was a nightmare.
Seriously?
Yeah.
For how long?
It was months. It was like 3 or 4 months of that. It was horrible.
Oh my God.
Imagine getting nudged awake. And I'll tell you, I did some research. I'm like, wait a minute. What would is this some kind of thing with reptilian cells? I looked up like reptilian sleep cycles, and reptiles can sleep the same amount of hours as humans, but they have much shorter cycles. Like they wake up intermittently for like a few seconds, look around, so their conscious kind of
very true. Yeah, they come alive for a bit, and then they sleep, they snooze, and then they're awake and they snooze.
So they could be aware of their environment. Because mammals tend to they'll together or something. They don't have to wake up every hour, look around, and go back to sleep. But I was doing that. Like these cells were like waking me up. I finally sort of got control over it after like 3 or 4 months where it wasn't doing it anymore. But the main benefit I've noticed is that when I work out, I don't feel soreness. Like I don't know if it's a reptilian, like they bred into like the reptilian that they clone this from. I don't like it. It really increases your ability to like work out and not feel any soreness at all. So maybe that's
excellent.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I did get the impression that they're going to do this to many more soldiers, to special forces. But here's the thing. I also got the psychic impression that they're going to say, hey, here's a stem cell treatment you should try, but not tell them where the cells are coming from. Not to tell them, Because technically, if you say, take the stem cell treatment, take this tissue, this transplanted tissue, if you never say it's not reptilian, but you never say they just
that it is.
Just never say where it's from, and they just presume, it must be, some human. It's not. Yeah. They're cloning reptilian cells. And that reptilian, when he was saying not as intended, this boosted my psychic abilities like a whole, another level. And this was like, now I understood that you could use it not as intended, which, and I know this sounds really odd, but there's going to be other people who've had this experience. I know that because this wasn't a project just for me or just about me. This was a project of use it on me first because I already have more reptilian DNA than the average person. See if something horrible happens to me, and it didn't. Besides insomnia, which was a nightmare. And now they're gonna, start doing it en masse. And tissue engineering, that's the next big thing. Like you got a bad kidney, you got a bad liver, you got a bad lungs. They don't, instead of replacing the whole organ, you just go in there and just replace some, like cookie cutter out some of the organ and replace it with a new, like grafted in piece.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So about in 10 years, this is just going to be, modern science, and this is not alien.
That makes sense.
This is just advancement.
This is just status quo now.
From this. This is very fascinating. Now, I think we have we don't have too much longer with you, and it's been really interesting, but a few of us have some kind of individual questions. Jude, did you have something you wanted to ask Matt?
Yeah. So one of the things that you talked about, you relayed a little bit about the warrior caste of the Reptilians, and now earlier tonight we found out that you've met an albino. I don't know do you have any other insights into what the other castes are and what the social structure is of different kind of like reptilian cultures?
A lot of the in-between castes, merchants, scientists, it tends to be brown or green, really. There isn't purple or other specific. The albino tend to be more royal or higher up. The browner, darker, like really dark brown tend to be more warrior. And then in between, it's more of a gray area, just various sort of middle class type. Do
you happen to know if that has anything to do? I know you might not because I don't know how much contact you have with them in general, but would you happen to know if that has anything to do with like how much sun exposure they get or minerals that they're around or what they're ingesting?
Yeah, well, I think the red reptilians, they're definitely from more of a desert type environment because of that red coloring. It wouldn't be useful anywhere else. Or like, Gila monsters or something. So maybe a little more aggressive and independent, which is why they evolved into the albino, so the leaders. And you see this with the albino reptilians people have met. They have very defined individual personalities and sort of tastes, how they decorate, kind of clothing they wear or armor, or the little private armies. And a lot of these big alpha like albino draconians, they have brown scaled reptilian guards, but they also like to have private like human army, like entourages of humans that follow them around. Which they then have a very specific sort of motif. Like each one, the way they dress their sort of human guard entourage. They're they're very individualistic. The way they like their personalities, their artistic tastes.
That was something I actually had I was very taken by that. I remember I was reading a little bit of what you've had to write in 2017, and I noticed you had mentioned that the reptilian choices of their jewelry and how they adorn themselves with armor seems to be actually pretty like more individualistic than like us humans, and I found it very interesting.
Yeah, that our military, they don't have a regimented uniform, so you'll see even like 10 warrior caste reptilians with 10 different variations of what armor they're wearing, what kind of jewelry they're wearing. It is, and in their jewelry, when they have like gold pendants, they wear like this big 5-ounce type like drink coaster type pendants. You'll see the little individual decorations in their pendants are completely individualized, like writing, little pictures they'll put in there or drawing. So for them, it's almost like their tattoo. Like instead of getting a tattoo,
or maybe like a family crest type thing.
Oh, they're just rugged individualists, and it's like Fortnite skins.
Dude, I kind of like this.
I like that a lot.
You know your cast, and so you're not kind of constricted into wearing a uniform, and then you can really branch out and paint yourself the way that you want to be painted.
They seem to have a lot of freedom. I like that.
Yeah.
So I have a couple quick questions too. Bishop Mill Lizard Man, is he a rogue reptilian or what?
I think a lot of these sightings of cryptid reptilians are just intelligent reptilians who, they do like hanging out in various swamps and areas of that nature. If you see them and they've been swimming or running around, they're not going to have their jewelry on or a uniform on or the weapons. So I think most of these cryptid reptilian sightings, maybe probably all of them, are just regular reptilians. There's no reptilian just living wild in the swamp somewhere. They're not
they wouldn't even be some that defected from the army and just decided to live here on Earth. Like, hey, we really like Louisiana, or we really like, Bishopville. I'm going to stay here.
That's what I want to ask about your
Sasquatches. Unlike the Sasquatch, people communicated with them and their tribes. They have a very sort of Amish, hyper anti-materialistic lifestyle where they just want to be as anti-materialistic as possible, and reptilians are completely the opposite. They're totally fine with materialism and goods and things that work. So they don't subject themselves to that sort of Amish type, or Amish extremism that's basically all Sasquatches are. It's like Amish extremists.
No, that's a great way to describe. That's a great way to describe them. I'm gonna take that. Yeah.
I need some.
I'm really starting to identify with reptiles now.
I'm thinking you're a reptilian.
Someone gave me a book on people who've had Sasquatch encounters, and one of the things in there is, Sasquatches. When they've communicated with people, they've actually said some of them they plan, in the event of like human society collapsing or something like that, that they're prepared to track where the Amish communities are and stay near them so they can redirect people to the Amish communities, because the Sasquatches can only take like so many human refugees because they have to train us how to live like them, like hunter-gatherers, which takes a lot of hands-on training. And apparently they can do it, but if you want to do like 6 months of like 12 hours a day of gathering berries or something, that takes a lot. That's it. The Sasquatch, I really think a lot of people put this forward, this idea. That's the missing link between human, that is the missing, that was the first original humans. And they're still
that came before us, yeah.
And they're very intelligent, but they're also, they think differently. They think slower. When they've talked to people, they talk real slow. And if you try and talk to them at like a normal pace, they're like, they get really upset and like, no, you have to talk slower.
It's like the Ents in Lord of the Rings. It's like the Ents who are like, listen, we're trying to get you on this page, but you are not willing to spend the time that it takes to understand us.
Yeah. Or how I'm expecting to talk in Germany.
I have no personal experience with them other than a woman who went to a MUFON meeting here in Illinois. And she had like thermal video of Sasquatches on her property. She had the hair. And she contacted me because they went to her. They were having problems with reptilians. Like in Ohio, or this other tribe was having problems with reptilians. And it's funny because they kept telling her they're having problems with dragons. And she's like, what the hell? Dragon? What the hell are you talking about? Dragon? There's no such thing as... And they were talking about reptilians. They kept calling them dragons.
Of course.
And it's funny because I've been saying, for years, dragons from mythology, those were absolutely the same exact beings as reptilians.
Yeah. And they have to have been.
We just renamed it and lost all that history. Yeah, just like, elves, goblins, those were basically grays, like rotten.
Yeah, exactly the way that you described in that past episode when you were talking with Brian and Phoebe about like it would make sense with the way that they were wanting hoarding gold with like the pianos and the finery and the handmade goods.
They still do that. If you see them, if you're brought to see a Royal Reptilian, many times they'll have like they want to talk to you with all their stuff behind them. So they'll have a designated, decorated, sealing the floor, just decked out. And they I think it's a nesting instinct. I think the reptilians have that saurian, because they do lay eggs. I think they have an instinct to like put all their nice stuff in like one pile or one area and hang out sort of near it. And it probably goes back to just being an egg laying. If you laid eggs, you'd have that same instinct. You want that one.
You want to keep it near. You want to show it off. Exactly. That's your home. It's your nest.
Yeah, maybe I'm part reptilian because I'm surrounded by unbelievable podcast stuff and a wash tar and a book and a framed picture of the cards of the show. So look, I have a couple.
Eggs. Just a swag drag.
Eggs. I'm a swag drag all the way. So I have another question. So regarding the closings of the Walmarts you talked about a few years ago, just real quick, was there anything that came out of that after did they ever reopen, or was there any kind of connection with that?
Well, I think with those, there really was some reptilian training going on in those facilities. Because like I've talked to Joe Montano on update shows, and they still, to this day, there's abductions where groups of police and military who happen to be abductees are taken to department stores after dark, taken to malls. And in some communities in rural areas, your super Walmart is the closest thing you have to a mall.
Sure.
So they have to have some training in that environment as well, because in some places that is your mall. That you don't have a functioning mall and that's it. But I didn't do like a follow up on did they reopen all of them. That I am not certain of.
Well, I have something that I want to play for you, which brings up Walmart. Now, Rob, I'm gonna have you cue up my clip number 4 to play for him. I'm gonna set it up. This is from a podcast where one of the hosts received a strange email that had a connection to the Walmart closings you talked about. Now, this was a comedy podcast, and forgive my editing skills on this because there's a lot of interjection that is cut out. I was just trying to get to the meat of the actual story. But this concerns Walmarts and other things that have happened to you as far as emails mysteriously disappearing. So, Rob, why don't you play the clip for me, please?
I was telling you that this story is not on the internet. This story is a story that will be breaking. And if hopefully, like I said, maybe it gets picked up by the internet and it goes viral, and we'll get credited with breaking a story of this magnitude in the paranormal world. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will dismiss it.
2 of them are at this table.
But I got this email.
Yeah.
From a listener revealing what's going on with the world's biggest retailer, which is Walmart. And I asked you guys, is there technology out there that will take an email from my inbox against my will so I can't access it no more? You guys said there isn't.
Well, I suppose it's
because I got it, and in the middle of the night, I read it. I was like, "Wow, this is amazing. This is cool. This is definitely a story I'd like to tell." And then the next morning, when I went to look at it again, it was gone, and I didn't delete it, and I can't find it anywhere. And I asked you, Q.
Is it possible you dreamed it?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm definitely not.
All right.
I didn't think. But you will also.
Right.